You're at an airport. Your flight is the most important of your life. You prepared, paid dearly, arrived early. Suddenly the screen changes to cancelled. There are no explanations, no open counter, just the ambient sound of other people going about their lives while you stand there, staring into space. The feeling of frustration is physical. It hurts in your stomach. We tend to think that if we are faithful, our flight will never be cancelled. But what if it is? What if prayer seems to hit the ceiling and bounce back in the form of silence? There was a man named Joseph, and his story always fascinates me, not because of the happy ending in Egypt, but because of the middle of the journey. Imagine what was going through that young man's mind in the cistern. He had a dream given by God himself, but reality delivered a dark pit and the smell of betrayal from his own brothers. Where was God's process there? It seemed like a mistake along the way, but the secret is that God doesn't work with mistakes. He works with stages. What Joseph saw as an end, God saw as necessary logistics to put him in the right place at the right time. If he hadn't been sold, he wouldn't have reached Potiphar's house. If he hadn't been unjustly imprisoned, he wouldn't have met the cupbearer. Without the cupbearer, he wouldn't have reached Pharaoh. Sometimes your prison today is the only safe path to your palace tomorrow. The problem is that we want to read the book of our lives, skipping the chapters of pain, but it is precisely these chapters that develop the protagonist's character. When we look at the text of Isaiah, the prophet uses almost poetic language to describe divine sovereignty. In Hebrew, when he speaks of God's ways being higher, he uses the word derek, which doesn't just mean a road, but a way of life, a complete journey. It's as if God were telling us, I'm not just seeing the end of the road, I own the map and am the architect of the terrain. We suffer because we try to manage the universe with the vision of an ant, while God operates with the vision of an eagle. Anxiety arises in the interval between what we want and the time God takes to prepare what we truly need. In the Greek of the New Testament, we have two words for time: chronos, which is clock time, the time that overwhelms us, and kairos, which is the time of divine opportunity, the time of maturation. Your chronos may be telling you that you are behind schedule, but God's kairos says that you are at the exact time for pruning so that you may bear fruit later. Think about it. Would you trust a surgeon to stop surgery midway because the patient is complaining of discomfort? Of course not. The surgeon knows the incision is necessary for healing. God is that surgeon. He knows where it hurts. He feels your tears. But he loves you too much to interrupt the healing process just because the comfort anesthesia has worn off a little. Trusting in God's process isn't about having blind and alienated faith. It's about having a trust grounded in memory. Look back. How many times have you thought it was the end and months later realized that end was the greatest deliverance of your life? Our memory is short for blessings and long for pain. We need to reverse that. We need to exercise the holy stubbornness of believing that if he is good and he is God, then what he is doing now, however painful, has a purpose of peace. Don't try to understand God. Try to rest in him. Understanding is limited. Rest is infinite. When you stop asking why and start asking for what purpose, your perspective changes. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a student of providence. And it is in this place of learning, of silencing external voices and the very voice of internal demands, that we finally begin to hear his whisper saying, "Calm down, I'm still in the boat, and I never lost control of the storm." Now, I invite you to take a step beyond understanding. Sometimes our minds are so full of questions that there's no room left for God's answers. So wherever you are right now, in the silence of your room, on the bus, or walking down a noisy street, try to create a little sanctuary within yourself. Close your eyes for a moment if you can. Feel the weight on your shoulders. Often we carry the world on our backs and forget that the world already has an owner, and that owner is not you. Take a deep breath. Exhale slowly, letting go of the pressure of having to solve everything yesterday. Father, we now enter your presence, not with prepared words, but with our hearts laid bare. You know us beyond appearances. You know about the sleepless nights, the conversations that ended in silence, the door that closed when we most needed it open. And the first thing I want to say to you, on behalf of those who hear me, is thank you. Thank you because even when I don't understand your process, I know that your intention for me is peace and not evil. Thank you for freeing us from what we thought was a blessing, but which would later be our ruin. I want to ask you now, my friend, to place your right hand on your heart. Feel its beating. Each beat is proof that God still has breath for you. He is not finished. If He is still keeping your heart beating, it is because the project is still underway. Lord, visit now this restless mind, this anxiety that makes the future seem like a giant monster. I rebuke in your name every spirit of despair. I speak now to the troubled waters of this soul. Be still, be calm. May your peace, the peace that does not depend on bank balances, that does not depend on medical diagnoses, that does not depend on the approval of others, flood this space now. Father, there are people listening to this prayer who feel like Joseph in the cistern. They look up and see only a distant circle of light. They feel forgotten. But I prophesy now that what seems like forgetfulness is, in fact, preservation. You are hiding your servant and your handmaid, so that at the right time they will appear with the authority of those who have survived the desert. I invite you now to repeat this phrase, quietly or in your thoughts. Your time is my rest. Say it again. Feel the weight of this surrender. When you accept that time belongs to Him, you stop fighting with the clock. Lord, extend your hand over this person's health. If there is an illness caused by stress, by hurt, by this painful process, let your virtue come forth now and heal. Cleanse the wounds of the past. Those words that were thrown against you, saying that you wouldn't succeed, that you were a mistake, that your time has passed. I cancel those words now. You are not what others say. You are what the Creator says about you. And He says that you are an heir, that you are loved, and that your journey has a glorious destiny. I want to intercede for the decisions that need to be made this week. Grant wisdom, that wisdom that comes from above, which is not human logic, but spiritual discernment. Open the eyes of those who are listening to see the opportunities disguised as problems. May each step taken bring a confirmation in the heart, a peace that says, "This is the way." And now, I want you to open your palms as if preparing to receive something. Imagine that you are handing over to God this specific problem that has been keeping you awake at night. Hand over your child, hand over the debt, hand over the legal proceedings, hand over the fear of loneliness. Feel your hands becoming light as the Lord takes on the responsibility. Father, breathe new life. Breathe hope upon the dry bones. May this person, upon finishing this prayer, feel a lightness they haven't experienced in months. May they be able to smile, not because everything has changed on the outside, but because everything has changed on the inside, because whoever has you has everything. Whoever trusts in your process will never be ashamed. I prophesy a week of divine surprises. I prophesy that the phone will ring with the news you've been waiting for, or with something even better that you haven't even dared to dream of. I bless your home, your table, your mind, and your spirit. May the light of the Lord shine upon you and give you peace. I sincerely hope these words have found a place in your heart. Sometimes we just need someone to remind us that we're not falling behind, we're just being prepared. If this moment of prayer brought a little calm to your day, it would be a joy to have you walking with us here on the channel. We try to be that point of light amid so much noise on the internet. Take care, breathe deeply, and remember, the maestro of your life never misses a note. We'll meet in the next video, or rather, we'll meet in the next prayer. A big hug, and see you soon.